creating wills. So you create your will, you're an attorney, and you craft the will like you would normally any day. This will's a little bit bizarre, a little different, I grant you that. This will says that upon my parents' death, so parents pass away, they have 2 kids. The 2 kids have to be married in order to split the estate. If one kid is married and one kid is not, the kid that's married gets 100% of the estate. Kind of bizarre. And then send the money their way. So, I was talking about the platform of Ethereum earlier. Ethereum allows you as an individual, usually a coder, some person that wants to code something. This is a bunch of JavaScript. It's basically a simple script that says exactly what we sort of just talked about. Every day, so the will is basically codified, so it's thrown into a machine. The machine says, okay, there are 3 trigger points on this. The parent's death, then check to see if the kids are married, and then distribute the money. So every day, the computer says, using the blockchain, says, okay, let's check to see if the parents have passed away. Unfortunately, they did on this day. So let's now go check with the state government to see if the 2 kids are married. So then it checks every single day to see if the kids are married. In this instance, 1 kid is married and 1 is not. So what happens is 100% of the estate goes to the kid that was married. So what it's doing is it's leveraging a written document that's then put into a machine. The machine has 3 trigger points, and then it's resulting in something that's completely autonomous. It doesn't have any connection to a human at that point, which is kind of bizarre. You're taking a lot of the human work that an attorney would do, that a law firm would do, away at that stage, which can be frightening, but it's the idea that you could leverage this and say, well, now we can handle many more of these sorts of cases. A lot more volume coming in. So that's what we're anticipating happening. Here's another one. So when you're talking about deeds, one of the countries that is testing this is Honduras. So believe it or not, there's some countries in this world that the people do not trust their governments. So in this instance, I live on this beautiful island, and my family's lived on it for generations. We know that we are completely surrounded by water. This is my house. I have a dock. I know it's mine. My neighbors know that it's mine. The government today says, yes, this is your land, but tomorrow, like, no, we'd rather sell it to someone else. No, it's not yours anymore. So it's that one entity in that scenario, our traditional scenario, the one entity saying you do own it or you don't. The blockchain is distributing that. It's saying, nope, what we're going to do is we're going to have multiple servers all running the same software, verify that this is happening. It's trusted, it's encrypted, it's working right now. Banks are using it. So in this instance, there's a company called Factom that said, let's try this in Honduras. Let's see whether or not we'd actually be able to use the blockchain to prove that this is the land that I own as a family. And so they're starting to use it instead of having the trust of the government, which could be there today, gone tomorrow. So that's another example. Music licensing. So any law firms that are dealing with this, legal industry that has to deal with this, it's a minefield of the distribution of how you break down how much money goes to various individuals. As you can see, I mean, every song, let's say you buy it on iTunes, buy it for £1, that is distributed into a ton of different pockets at that stage. What the blockchain does is you can actually take the power away from the music industry, so to speak, and individual artists are coming up with their own websites, and through blockchain are able to sell their own songs. If they want to sell half their song or a section of the song, they can also do that because they're leveraging the blockchain to say, this individual bought it from me, this one song, I'm giving it to them for 30 days or up until, who knows, forever. Or I can sell off a section of that. And each instance of that is actually stored in the blockchain. So it's secured and the individual is known to be able to access that. So the music licensing will also have an effect. Chain of custody is another area that this is going to impact, no question. And it makes sense. It's basically a ledger, a database ledger of being able to store information for quite some time. Now, this is where we get to be a little bit more futuristic. And by futuristic, I'm talking potentially 2 to 5 years away, where it could be some major disruption. So DAO, which is the Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, is this idea where Contracts are interacting with contracts. So once a human has decided that I want to blockchain something, you create a process here. So in this instance, there's a great company that's called Slockit. It's based in Germany. What this company has done is they are sort of disrupting Airbnb. So Airbnb, of course, is disrupting, of course, the hotel industry. But Slockit, what they've done is they've developed a lock that you put on your door. And if you want to rent your house, or your apartment, or your condo, whatever the case might be, you can use their service. You would go to their service like you normally would. You'd upload the pictures, where it is, what the wonderful parts about your place is. And the lock knows everything about your place. It knows who's supposed to be there. It knows how much they spent on it, when they're supposed to be leaving, when they're there, and when they're not there. How does this work? So you will have your own identity. What we talked about before, everyone will have their own identity essentially. You interact with anything. So it's a widget, any object in the world. So we talk about the Internet of Things. Every single object in the next 3 or 4 years will have its own IP address. So in this instance, it's going to be the door to get into a particular place you want to rent. So I'm interacting. It knows when I log into the site that who I am. It knows that I'm looking for a place. Oh, I found a place in London. I'd love to check out this flat. So what it does is it goes out and tries to find that digital contract for that door. So that doorknob has its own IP address. It knows that what its function is. So it searches through and it looks for the particular contract, takes a split second, comes back and says, okay, this is the contract that allows the individual to get access to my place. It knows who that person is, when they're supposed to be there, how much they're paying for it. It also knows when they leave for the day. So it automatically will say, okay, the person left for the day. So this contract will then go back and try to find the contract that allows the cleaning group to come in. And so the cleaning agency comes in, they're able to take care of the place. So it's legal documents that have been turned into this blockchainable event that law firms will have to deal with much more. So all these contracts are going to be put into the blockchain essentially. Kind of fascinating to think about as we progress. So this is something that is kind of fascinating. So the code is law. So we're moving this idea that all the code, all the contracts that we've had before will now be codified. So it'll be put into codes, specifically scripted code that allow people to be able to interact with them and objects to interact with each other. So there's a lot of words on this page, but basically what it says is that there's an agreement between 65 different countries around the world, whereby any single arbitrator that's decided something will also have an impact on any other arbitrators around the world. So we're moving to a time where you actually have arbitration done by the blockchain. So once you've established something that actually exists and it's codified and put into the blockchain, it can actually make those decisions for people. It's kind of frightening, but it could potentially have an impact on people in terms of what they do. So in this example, there's a $60,000 claim that was made. Normally, a law firm would probably charge around $11,000 for that, or 11,000 pounds. But with this sort of arbitration, it'd actually be automated, so it's a $221 fee. Same instance, $80,000 claim could also cost around $221 rather than $11,000 or so. So you're going to this automated phase. So taking contracts that are written, that still will be written, and then move them into the blockchain where they're all going to be automated automatically. So taking that out a little bit further, there are many people that have theorized that algorithms will eventually sort of take over this space. You have all the blockchain contracts, the smart contracts interacting with each other. So law firms will hopefully be heavily involved in that as they start ramping up over the course of the next few years. But at some point, you're going to take all the laws, you're going to codify them, and turn them into software, so that the Internet of Things will sort of take over in a way. We'll all have some sort of lenses in the next 2 to 3 years. There's a company based in the United States called Magic Leap that has these goggles that they're going to be coming out with soon. They're not going to be like the Google Glass, they'll be hopefully more like glasses. And they will have the ability to see things. They will know where chairs are, where people are, and they can overlay things on top of that. So when you're wearing these glasses, let's say this is probably 3 or 4 years away from now, you want to go down to the store, you jump in your autonomous car, And this day you feel a little rebellious, so you decide to turn off that. You want to just take the car out, you hit the gas, or whatever, the electricity. You take off and you actually exceed the speed limit. Your car knows you exceeded the speed limit, so what happens is your car is automatically going to fine you. You get fined $75 or 75 pounds for actually exceeding the speed limit. You're going to this market, so you walk into the market, and again, you're feeling rebellious and decide just to grab something and leave. Your camera will see that. It'll know you've actually taken this product out without paying for it, and it will also fine you. So you'll actually be pulled, money will be pulled right from your account. This is a direction of where the blockchain is going, in combination with all these other pieces that are happening. The thing is, there is so much opportunity right now for the law firms, for the industry, if you decide to go down this path. If you decide to start sort of messing around with blockchain now, working with local universities or other groups to be able to spend time on this, to actually truly delve into it, it's going to have a major effect. So the way I like to think about this is that internet, so many years ago, progressed to email. That was the first sort of layer on top of that. Then we went to the web. Then we went to smartphones and apps, and Uber being one of the biggest apps. The blockchain, quite honestly, is a whole nother platform that a ton of different things are going to be built onto and have a major effect. We don't know what's next. We know that there are going to be some of the things that I sort of went through. We're not certain exactly where this is going to go, but there's no question it's going to impact every one of our lives. So just some other industry terms in just the last few seconds here that you may hear about: colored coins, side chains, anchor chains, specialized chains. There's a lot of things that are going on in this space that you should be aware of. And then one of the last things I just wanted to say is that there are lots of challenges to this. There's skeptics, there's no question. People, maybe this is not going to happen. I guarantee that it will happen. So there's a lot of history to this as well. There's regulation is going to be impacted. So there's privacy issues around it, as you can probably gather based on what I've said. But that's pretty much where we stand. So.